Oh, right, okay. Oh, yeah, of course he is. Paul's on leave. So, yeah, that's it. Full house.
Morning all. Just a very brief update for statutory responsibilities for the company. Just 4 things really. We want to look at CPD a little bit straight away about updating best practice for desk-based working. Hence why we're recording this so people can watch it back. Strengths within statutory areas at the minute, what's new with the updates, and then reminders for actions. Because there's 1 or 2 actions that we keep talking about, and we just need to make sure we get over the line. So there shouldn't be any sound with this, but it's a little bit more visual than me just talking to you. Hopefully it works. So this video is just going to identify some best practice around where we work and how we work when we're desk-based. So this is covering whether you are in the office, whether you work from home, or whether you're hybrid. We have a responsibility as a company to identify that this is an important responsibility of ourselves as individuals to make sure that we are proactively working in a safe environment. And where things may not be exactly how we need it or want it, it's our responsibility to then inform your line manager or higher up to be able to do something about that. And this will identify, just in written form, a couple of diagrams with some questions and Q&A after, if needs be, just what the advice is from the health and safety executive. Okay, so apologies about the no sound, but the official presentation that I was shown last Tuesday at the NEBOSH conference, where they just identified a few of the best practice areas that we need to look at. It isn't something that anybody shouldn't already know, but it is something that you should be aware of and take control of yourselves. Nobody is going to necessarily come around with a clipboard and tick things off for you. That said, there is support that if people need, that we have always looked at as a company, whether it be support with footrests, whether it be raised screens, so on and so forth. But if you are in particularly sat at a desk for a long period of time, I think the interesting one is about that static posture problem. Just make sure that you stand up, and even if you're walking to and from the printer for a couple of minutes, or giving yourself 5 minutes away from the screen, it's really important now. It used to be 2 to 3 hours, but it's no longer that. They're now saying it every hour to reduce that static posture. Another one I thought was good is that they're identifying that a lot of desk-based workers now use laptops. So even when you have got a laptop screen, you want to transfer your main screen onto the big one and make sure that the top one is elevated to eye level. So then you're just using your keyboard on your laptop and only occasionally looking downwards. It can be a habit that we get into, and then we wonder why in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time that we've got a little tight lower back, or we're struggling with shoulder pain and so on and so forth. And that's what we just talked about there. So we're just looking at eye level. Any questions about that? I thought I'd just take the opportunity to go through it all, update it, and then moving on. So statutory update on strengths. So
Danny, sorry, Dan. No, no questions on that. Just obviously from the people in the group perspective, we and if I'm about to say something you're going to say in a minute, Danny, just stop me. But Danny asked for us to amend the off the back of attending the conference that Danny just referenced. Danny asked us to amend the kit.
Yeah.
The kit template. You're going to go on to that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay. So strength CPOMs. So it's been a huge improvement. The majority of people who were using it a lot were really kind of okay with it and not as scared of the system as maybe a few people were. I think a good example would be the activity managers, Sam and Adam, who have recently had to start to use that tool, and they've then been through a couple of processes where they've seen the benefit of it. So it's almost little and often, and it's you're able to walk away from that. And then external see it as hugely professional when we do ping out these reports, which is really, really good. We're also looking at the content of that being much improved. There is always areas for improvement, and none more so for myself, but looking at taking that time to revisit something that's been written is something that is happening a lot more, and I can tell because I'm seeing the log in, log out annotations of that, which is really good. So keep that up. Raised profile of health and safety and safeguarding for all areas. I think that it's only fair for me to be able to confidently say that about 18 months ago, people would have been, without even flinching, looking away from the screen, doing 2 different jobs at the same time when we were at statutory meetings or we were talking about health and safety. It was almost the kind of, what do you mean? It's whatever, it's one of them boxes to tick. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that everybody on this call takes it as serious as it needs to, because either we've been through a situation that's brought that to light, or we have put something in place and we've needed it and we've been one step ahead of the game, which is brilliant. I can't recall, but I've not heard from Dan, Chris, or the solicitors about anything in the last year. Okay, in particular around anything more than a complaint, whereas in the past we have had a couple of people saying, well, that wasn't on the first aid form, and where was that, and where was this, and blah blah blah. So that is really good, because I think everybody is stepping up to that, and rightly so. Professional and efficient responses to recent safeguarding cases and health and safety incidents. So I'm not going to back off from saying this. This is a huge strength. People go to work, and including a lot of people on this call, we should not be expected to be dealing with attempted suicides, with people who are carrying objects that they shouldn't be, with people who are children, young people who are saying certain comments about family life, things like that. But it happens. And the way that everybody has dealt with the recent ones has been really, really professional, very efficient, and hopefully we can learn from that and then maintain it. As my job is to make sure that you, as much as you possibly can, are able to switch off the second you leave work and not be worrying about things. And that is my constant goal regarding this. And I think that is becoming really, really well received from you. And also I'm receiving it back from you, especially again, activities when I'm seeing things coming in at a weekend, because that is your working day as well. And we can maybe further improve the support for you at the weekend as well, which I'm going to start to look at. So what's new? So there's a health check-in, which is what Dan was about to start to talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Dan, or you want me just to keep going. Okay. So on the new kit form that was being handed out through HR, that is now going monthly, I believe, rather than bi-weekly, we have taken the opportunity to do a couple of jobs in the same one, so we're not kind of making any more work for anybody. But what we are doing is adding section 5 in there, which Dan's done for us, and asking 3 very, very simple questions each time we meet, and that is, do you remain happy with your workspace environment? If you are a desk-based worker, do you have any concerns? If you're home-based, hybrid working, do you have any concerns? It's the opportunity for you as managers to also disseminate that down to your staff, and we can track, audit, and prove that we are proactively doing everything that we can to give people the opportunity to say there is a problem before it becomes an issue. What else is new? So the statutory update. So this has been rolled out through SLT. Some of you in the meeting may have already been aware of this. What this does is it's a 1-page A4 sheet that just identifies what our statement intent is around statutory. So for a reminder for everybody, statutory responsibilities are our legal and legislative responsibilities. So they're basically stuff we don't get a choice. We have to do, otherwise someone's going to check and find us or start to prosecute against us. I'm not going to go through it all there, but as you can see, it just bullet points and identifies what we must do. So in whatever roles we have, and we make sure that we have got certain things in place. If you haven't got access to this, I'll share the link in the chat box afterwards, but it's saved centrally in the policies and procedures for cross-company. Final one for update is around the statutory document requirement. So this definitely has been disseminated in and through, and it's a bit of a nudge and a reminder if you think, oh, I haven't told that person in that ops role yet. This is a checklist that is going to underpin certain deep dives that happen, and it may be that you yourselves are going to use that when you go into program and tick it off. It may be something that I have in my hand if I decide to turn up and have a look. There will be 1, maybe 2 a year, just random drop-ins, just checking on that. And it's a supportive drop-in to make sure, look, as we know, we've got to just be ready for something and not need it, as opposed to need it and it not be there. And it's a very simple tick list of 11 things, everything from first aid kit on site to how are you advertising your nominated first aider, all the way through to things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, and that is who has access to your liability insurance, and so on and so forth. It may be that you, your line manager, and your team discuss the fact that we don't have this visually up on our program. Well, okay, but if when checked, you need to be able to justify, okay, so where is it? How have you got access to it? And how does everybody else have access to that if they need it? So an example would be online provision for training adults. They don't have a physical board anywhere, so where is theirs? So they then say we share our induction PowerPoint through our Padlet on our Google Classroom. And that's the way that they can always refer to where do you get it, how do you get access to it. If it's a swimming, it may be a pop-up trifold that you decide just to have standardized, like some of the training center notice boards are. Again, how you do it, up to you, as long as we do it. And the final page of that is just some guidance around what I suggest you have in your first aid kit. First aid is coming central again, and it's just going to be a central stock, as we've talked about, where people will update you, and then you just gain access to that. I will control the budget, and every month I'll go in and just pre-order some kit that we think we're running low on. And finally, then, just some reminders. So risk assessments for 22, 23, make sure that they're being completed. They're new for existing venues, and also for any activities and provision. So if we go to a new corporate venue that we're running activities from, it's their venue, great, but it's our activities that are run on a different venue, so we need new risk assessments to be completed. We need access to their risk assessments and then make sure that ours align with them. We also need to make sure that when we do the risk assessments, that they are saved at the central location, which we should all know about. But again, if you don't, contact me and I'll give you the link for that. It's on SharePoint. We are still, I believe, missing documents for the move at Bedford Heights. So we need to make sure that that is being actioned, and we have kind of a link to their risk assessment, and we have our own in place. Just to be aware, there's always comments about Bedford Heights as well around the long walk to Car Park 2. That journey is part of our responsibility to risk assess as well. So making sure that whoever completes that risk assessment walks it, checks the lighting, checks any kind of areas that they deem to be safe, unsafe, whether it be anything to do with the hotel on our doorstep, whether it be that somebody's lone working at a late night, because it could be intimidating for somebody. Second one, ensure that we have staff completing the lone working questionnaire and have this uploaded to our people HR. So it's really, really important. We put that in place last year, maybe a year and a half ago. And it's a very simple guidance document, a doing document, and an action plan document all in one. You can hand it over to them. It's self-explanatory, and it's only when you review it as a manager that you then think, oh, okay, we need to then revisit and sit down and do something about this because you don't feel safe. It's extremely important that we have that. We need to be able to proactively prove that if something goes wrong, and touch wood it doesn't, that it's not because the company have let them down. Okay, or even worse, it's not because the company have made them do something which has put them into a situation of being unsafe. Again, proactively speak to me if you don't know where to save it. Speak to me if you've lost the email, and then also double check your new staff. I'm happy, I'm sure hierarchy will be, that once you have completed that, unless something changes, you shouldn't need to keep going back over it and back over it. It's only when something changes that you want to revisit that. Finally, again, really important, EMAFEs, so emergency medical action plans, must be completed, displayed, and saved in that central location. Okay, we keep talking about it in different meetings, and the lowest of low risk areas have still not got them in place, and they're the areas that are likely to need it. And it's statutory. It's not a we don't really need it. We have to have it. It must be in place, and it needs to be in place in the next couple of weeks, please, if possible. I think we've got one or two which are perfectly okay because they're transferable, especially around Alexander Sports Centre. We don't need one for football and one for gymnastics and one for this. We don't need that. Sam and Adam have worked together with Shannon and Emma to make sure that we've got just that one that is universal for all people. Great, but it's pointless if it's living in a dusty folder and no one can see it, because then nobody knows what to do and how to follow it. That's the important bit now, hence why we talk about let's advertise everything now, let's get things on notice boards, on Padlets and wherever else we need it. Apologies for the chalk and talk, but that's me. Apologies if we've run over a little bit. Is there any questions?
Any questions from anyone? No, just clapping. No, that's brilliant, Danny. Thank you. And yeah, totally agree. It's both on both sides of the fence, health and safety and safeguard, and it's definitely something that is kind of risen right up the priority list for everybody, and that's testament to the work that you've been doing around it. And yeah, thank you to everyone for getting on board. I'll touch base with you on the Bedford Heights one because we did complete that when you sent that out. It's a hard copy. It's in the office. I'll show you where that is, and I'll say. Yeah. I didn't realise. I was probably my fault. I didn't save it on the. If you're in there, it's on the shelf. Right, just a couple of quickies from me. Just putting a few things that are sensitive on everybody's radar that I just need you all to be aware of. Some of you may already be aware of this. Sorry, Danny.
Can I stop recording then? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can do.
Yeah. Because